African values and Africa standard, we should never look up to the US or look up to the Eastern China or whatever to find our values or to learn our moral values. We should never do that, because we have our values and we have our moral ethics, things that we believe in, things that are actually better. But for a long time, we have been taught or we have been trained in a way that we do not appreciate what we do have, and therefore we see what other people do have, it's better than us. So we are at the point where we doubt ourselves. Like, we'll say things like this, that, oh, we'll never be able to get rid of corruption. Look at the US, they're corrupted. Everybody is corrupted. We can never do that. That's what most of the people will say, that no, this can never happen. In this world, everywhere you find people like this. But I'm saying, even if like US is corrupted so much, it doesn't mean that we have to be corrupted too. Just an example. Even if like that country or that nation, that part, those people, they're screwed up, they're kind of like this, it doesn't mean that we should be that way too. Like, that should never be our standard. That should never be our motto of our success. That should never be a motto of our values and ethics and things that we have, because that is different place, it's different countries, different nation. If it is impossible to them, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to us. It can be possible to us. And so what we have to look up to, we have to look at ourselves. We have to look at where we came from. We have to look at, we should never forget where we came from and where we started and how we started and where we want to be and how can we get there. Because right now, if I'm saying this in general, because this kind of mindset is in our mind a lot. Because when I look at first of all, there's no developed country. This is just my opinion. All countries are developing countries. I think this is the first place where the world started to create a little bit of division, that you have third world country and you have, I hate this analogy, you have first world countries. Like, Mika, you came from first world countries, you're going to the third world countries. This analogy actually makes people to disrespect Africa, because third world country, who wants to go to third world country? I want to go to the first world country or the second, but not third. We're like at the bottom there. And not only that, they say, oh, these are developed country and these are developing country. But all countries, they want to develop. If they are developed country, what are they doing right now with the economies? Why they are constantly want to, take away things from developing country, to develop their country? If they're developed, why are they doing that? So it doesn't really make sense. But these are kind of how can I say? So they're messing up with psychology. They're messing up with how we see ourselves. So we reach the point where we're like, oh, we are developing, so we should look at developed country, what they did and what they're doing. Oh, we're a third world country, we should look up to the first world country. There's no first world country. All those processes, they are making them from themselves. I'm saying Africa is the first world country too. We have so much richness in culture, in all these other levels. So I hate this analogy that they make it like they force us to think that Africa is somewhere down there, and the only way for us to achieve what we're doing is doing what they did to be where they are, which is not truth, or to adapt to the ethics, to adapt to the moral standards, to adapt to the values that they have, they invented for themselves. For us, we have to follow that to be where they want to be. We have a different journey. My journey and Ezra from SA and Ezra right here is different. Our journey is different. We are all living right now. We are all doing One Africa Forum, but we go into the different path. We don't even know where God is bringing us to. So the journey that all these countries they went through, it doesn't mean that journey we have to take it. It doesn't mean that we have to look up to that. We have our own values, we have our own beliefs, and we should always stick to that. We should always believe in ourselves. We should always believe that we are developing country is not lesser than developed country. There's no developed country. That's one thing we should get out of our mind. But there's no such a thing. There's no such a thing as the first world country, and there's no such a thing. We should keep that in our mind to build up the confidence, to build up that how can I say, awareness that, you know what, we are able, we can do, we are capable, and what we do, we're on the right track. And if we want to get rid of something, we can actually do it. Yes, it will take time. Yes, it will take a lot of dedication, but we can do impossible things that other people, they were not able to do it, because we are not alone. We are with God, and we have that determination, and we can get it done slowly and but sure. We can get there. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say before I let you guys say your final words. Ezra, you're back, Professor
Yeah,
Ezra.
thank you, Aaron, so much for this. I mean, what you just talked about is like debunking one of those myths out there. First,
Mm,
second, and third. How come there's no fourth? How come there's no
mm.
fifth? Like how come
Yes.
like how it's a it's a screwed up terminology. It doesn't really describe the true nature of how things are. I mean, like
Mm,
if countries are considered developed, if countries are
mm,
considered developed, how come they are around? So developed in
mm,
what terms? Developed intellectually, developed materially, developed spiritually.
mm,
In what terms are they developed? If they are developed in all these aspects, spiritual, intellectual, emotional level of development, how come they live in a world where their neighbor is starving to death, or
mm,
neighbor is killing? Their neighbors are killing each other. I mean,
mm,
how can they be developed in a world where half the population of the world is living in the squalor conditions, and they are cocoon in their own bubble of security, like false sense of security, false sense of economic and political and social security. There's no security there. So there's no development. It's developing. Developing is like this. You are in that phase of growth, always growing, always improving, always moving. And
yeah.
to me, another myth that is also there is the notion that no country can develop through raw materials.
Mm, mm, mm.
Ukraine is one of the what is famous for a lot of things, but one of the things they're famous for is for producing for being a leading country in wheat production. This is a farm product. Wheat
Mm.
production. They
Yes.
tend to derive more resources out of the production of their agricultural sector, despite the
Mm,
fact that they live in a world where EU and the US gives enormous subsidies to distort the incentive structure.
mm,
But despite the fact that Ukraine is not a member of these groupings, but they found a way to succeed in growing aspect of their economy that is essential to the world well-being. You look at countries like Botswana as that example. I think Ezra was mentioning earlier. You got Australia, you got Canada, you got even the US and even Qatar and all these countries that depend on raw materials, and they tell us, "Oh, you haven't developed your industry. That's why you're poor." No, that's a lie. That's a false truth. And there are countries in the world that sell raw materials and find a way to succeed from selling raw materials, and to be wealthy from selling raw materials, unprocessed materials. So how come the reason Africa is not rich is not because it hasn't developed industries or has developed industries? It is neither of those. It's because we don't have the moral compass that is defined by the true characteristics of Africanism. Our moral values, the compass we use, is not defined by what the morality that defines the ordinary African life. Our public life at the highest level is not a reflection, or it doesn't mirror the true ground level values. So it's the disconnect. Okay, it's the disconnect between our public life and our private life is where we are struggling. Hence, it is not what is material that is the problem. It is what is immaterial that is the problem. What is immaterial is what's governing us, and that is where and that's where people are taking shortcuts, and that's where people are wrong. Thank
That's
you,
incredible. I appreciate Professor Ezra for dropping the mic. That's how you feel it, you know.
I don't know what to say except to laugh.
Ezra SA. Yeah, I mean, what you just said, Prof. Ezra, about the moral fiber. It's what is maybe lacking or not embraced. That's what some of the things that we are struggling with, where people to understand how things are and how things should be done in a way that can move everyone forward. And another example of a country that's built on minerals, South Africa is also built on minerals. Gold is what built most of the infrastructure they have currently. It wasn't. It was nothing else, but the gold rush is what really made the economy. They exported, like, I think in the 1970 there was half of the world's gold came from one country by then, and that's what built cities like Johannesburg and all of those places. Even now, it's still a big mining country where certain things are not really processed here, but it's still a spin-off for the country. That's another thing in closing is for us to look into ways that can help us to put infrastructure in place for the general African people every day, because those are the things that can also build confidence in people to believe in their countries. Part of the reason why we besides the fact that we are given tech to say you guys are third world and all those things, and people believe it, is because there's nothing that they can say and to stand and say, but we are doing this, that can build the confidence in them. So I believe that if with the infrastructural deficit that's currently happening in our continent, those are the things that we need to build going forward, in terms of looking at the whole society as a whole. Because I think as Africans, we are a societal, we are a communal people, we are a family oriented people, and we know that for the betterment of our communities, Mika, you love saying that if your neighbor is not at peace, you can't be at peace, you know. That in a way that we need to build on each other, to say we need to build for the people of Africa, for the people to build confidence in the African people. And African people are confident, not that I'm saying they're not confident, but to have a joy and a sense of direction, to believe that they can have a future in this country, they can build in this country. You understand? Instead of envying other countries, to say that's when they look at other countries, they put them in a high standard, and they crush their own country, they speak even worse of their country, and they even cast themselves. You know, the power of words, how sometimes some of the words, we should reject some of the words that are said about us as Africans, because it becomes a curse. We live under the curse of other people to define Africa as a war zone, a poverty-stricken zone. We need to reject such words and start believing that we are building in Africa. We are busy, and we will not allow others to define who we are. We are going to define us through such platforms like this One Africa, where we can express and define who we want to be and who we are as African people, and as wise people, as intelligent people, and blessed people, and people that are like, if you look at Christianity in the world today, is in Africa, and people, whether people mock it or whatever, but it's something to know that Africans are very spiritual people. They, you know, and that's just that for me from my side today, about building as Africans.